What's it going to take to bring these blockades, to bring this series of escalating protests to an end? That is the question that so many Canadians have. First Nations who want to see these projects built, that's the question they have. Many legislators, many people who want to see action from law enforcement. What will it take for the OPP to do their job and enforce those court injunctions in Ontario against the Via Rail blockade? What will it take for Prime Minister Justin Trudeau to act decisively and to also appropriately and honestly represent what's happening right now across this country? A major escalation taking place on Tuesday. I don't think it got the news that it deserved. Protesters who, let's be honest, were not Wet'suwet'en members, as most of these people are not. They were eco-environmentalist protesters associated with the Extinction Rebellion movement. They showed up outside BC NDP Premier John Horgan's home. Not outside his office, not outside the BC legislature, which they already blockaded the week before, outside his house. And were they protesting? No, they were there to arrest him. And you say, hold on a second, Furey, you mean that they were there and they got arrested? Well, yes, actually they were removed finally at the end, but no, they were there to arrest John Horgan, to perform a citizen's arrest on him. Activists who represent the views of 0.5% of the country wanted to arrest the elected Premier of British Columbia. Seriously? Okay, that is not a citizen's arrest. A citizen's arrest, whatever you think of these things, and vigilantism and all that kind of stuff, a citizen's arrest, you can legitimately call it that if you see, okay, this guy robbed a store and now I'm going to hold him down and detain him until the police get here. And well, in this country, this day and age, you'll probably get charged for doing that, for assaulting the guy, but still we can validly call that a citizen's arrest. No, camping out outside John Horgan's house to attempt to take him away, that's called a kidnapping. That would be kidnapping a premier of Canada. Now, I don't want to turn this into something more incendiary than it is, but we ought to face the facts. That is what we've come to, that is what they are doing. Because if they did blockade the legislature the week before and face no real repercussions for that, why would they not up the ante? It's like how we have people who are blockading the Via Rail lines, the CN rail lines in Belleville, and it should be noted that these are First Nations people. They are self-described Mohawk warriors, although the Grand Chief of the Mohawks did say this is not productive, we'd like this to be wound down, so they do not even represent their own community, but they are First Nations people. They did that blockade, and then afterwards, I guess because they've been able to do that with impunity, related individuals blockaded the Thousand Islands Parkway border crossing. So we have a border crossing, basically our own national sovereignty being violated here. The Canada border, the US border, you couldn't get tourists, you couldn't get people going back and forth to see relatives. Trade was blocked in all of that. And all that law enforcement said was, well, we encourage people to go and pursue another path, to drive an hour this way or an hour that way to another border crossing. This is what it's come to. So what do they do next? Because they've been able to do all of this with impunity. And they haven't even had leadership like Justin Trudeau say, stop blockading this. This is wrong. This is illegal. Trudeau just keeps talking about dialogue with First Nations as if these groups actually represent First Nations communities adequately, as if they actually speak for the broader First Nations constituency. And we're seeing more and more First Nations voices step forward and say, no, they do not. And it's very worrisome to see that you went from blockading the BC legislature and barring Christy Freeland from getting into a Halifax building to attempting to kidnap John Horgan. And I will not retract my words in my description of that, because that's basically what that is. What happened if police did not show up to protect John Horgan's home? He has his own personal sort of security, and there's provincial law enforcement, and thankfully this is one time when they did do their job. But what happened if they were not there? Would they have actually attempted to do this citizen's arrest of him? What would they have done if they'd gotten a hold of him? Would it have just been a stunt for the cameras, or would they have taken him somewhere? These are questions that need to be asked, and they're very valid ones, because it's where we are at right now. And we see stuff like that happening, and we realize this is not just contempt for the law in terms of, okay, don't step in front of this rail line. This is contempt for the safety and security and autonomy of other individuals, and senior individuals too, like Christy Freeland and John Horgan. Let us, of course, hope that this does not escalate. But I also, if I am one of these activist protesters devising tactics, why wouldn't one escalate it given the carte blanche that you have so far been given? Worrying times that call for action, and let's hope that we see that soon.